Welcome back to the Confident Connector. I'm Bryce Wise, and today we're going to be talking about the Likeable Connector and what does that mean. Let's find out. The Likeable Connector is the fourth connection style. It is the one that is probably the most confusing. And it's probably the one that is confused the most for a Confident Connector. Because the thing is, the Likeable Connector is the people that everybody likes them. Everybody wants to be their friend. Everybody wants to hang out with them. But the thing is, the biggest thing about the Likeable Connector is they struggle with depth. They can talk all day long about topics. They can talk all day long about sports or the weather or what they're doing this weekend, but they really rarely bring emotion into it. And if they do, it's a very shallow emotion. And the Likeable Connector is oftentimes some of the loneliest because they have all these people around them, but people hardly ever see them. And this comes from, this is a coping mechanism for kind of not wanting to rock the boat, there's insecurities there of oh, if I speak out, it's going to be wrong. People won't like me if I have an opinion. And really it comes down to, as a kid, they wanted to please everybody. They wanted to make everybody happy. And so they really didn't, to do that, they didn't add depth to anything. So because of that, everybody likes the Likeable Connector, and everybody wants to be friends with them. But when you actually sit down with the Likeable, it's almost like you're talking about radio broadcasts, where it's quick, short, little stuff with not a lot of content, so that you can get their point across. These people are often very, very nice, but they really shy away from hard, difficult things. They don't like talking about things that are hard or things that are difficult or things that challenge them, because they really get stuck in this rut of well, if I have a strong opinion or a strong-willed opinion, people won't like me then. And it's kind of this identity crisis of what goes on in their head is stuff well, just figure it out, just make friends, just do the things. And they're going through the motions, but they're not diving in deep. And I've been reading Chip Gaines' new books about networking, and he talks about a story where he was at a thrift store or at a big he was at a big outdoor antique show pretty much, and people were coming up to him taking pictures, and then his kid went missing, but everybody still wanted to take pictures, and they didn't see him as the dad, they saw him as Chip Gaines. And that's oftentimes how the Likeable Connector will feel is, oh no, these emotions come up, they get buried in and stuff. And so, I like to think of the Likeable Connector like Joey from Friends. Because Joey, everybody wants to be his friend, everybody likes to do it, but he struggles with authentic emotion. And he struggles with having a personality. There's an episode where he's an actor and somebody's spitting on him and he doesn't like it and he doesn't want to confront him because he wants the guy to like him. And really what it comes down to is they're insecure with how and why people like them. And oftentimes the Likeable Connector will fit every mold. They will fit into the mold of the happy-go-lucky guy or gal. They'll fit into the mold of, jock, or they'll fit into the mold of things. And they'll start taking on these like false identities. And the likable connector will actually start camouflaging themselves in because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to do it. And so they'll have very similar opinions to the people they're around because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want people to actually see them have emotion and actually see them have, you know, an opinion and stuff. And so, they'll camouflage themselves in and they'll make sure that they like say the right things and do the right things, and they'll make sure that they look a certain way and act a certain way because they really just fear, and it really comes from a fear base of like people pleasing and that kind of stuff. So the likable connector is probably one of the most dangerous in this terms of like long-term mental health. Because the likable connector very much doesn't realize that they're alone. Well, they realize they're lonely, but they don't know how to add that depth in that they need to feel alive, to feel active, to feel like they have value, because you know they're not themselves because they're trying to fit in with the mold, and they're trying to be the perfect mold, and so they're really not themselves, and that really starts dragging them down. Some of the happiest go lucky people that people around are actually some of the loneliest because they're not authentically themselves. And so what does the likable connector need to thrive in life? Well, the first thing they need is they need a safe place to show emotion. Because the likable connector has always tried to fit into the mold. They want to be that perfect cookie cutter example, and they don't want to stand out. They don't want to be crazy. They want to fit in. They want to camouflage themselves in, and so they don't experience this emotions and stuff. And so if you can give them a place that is safe and helpful to give them emotion and show them emotion and have them learn what healthy emotion looks like. And it's not just fitting into a mold, it is expressing your emotion and doing that in a healthy way. It actually lets them really start to thrive. The next thing they need to really start to thrive is they need depth. They they have people to give them the attaboy. They have people to give them the pat on the back. They are the ones that have people around, but what they need to thrive and feel seen and feel heard and feel loved is really they need depth. They need depth of, instead of just asking them, how are you doing? Well, how did that make you feel? What did that make you experience? What were you thinking when that happened? Because when you do those kind of things, all of a sudden, these depth brings in a whole new level of authenticity to themselves. And they'll realize that it's okay for them to not fit the mold, that it's okay for them to have an opinion that's different. It's okay for them to do that kind of thing. And it makes them start becoming more their authentic self. The next thing that a likable connector needs to thrive is they need authenticity in them. They have put on so many different masks, so many different characters, so many different ways to fit in and make sure that people like them, that they've lost themselves. And so what they need is they need safe places to build authenticity. They need to be okay. Like if they're a comic book lover, they need a safe place to actually have comic books and read comic books. Like, they need to be authentically themselves in that. And when they have opportunities to become authentically themselves, where they're not being judged because of how they're singing, they're not being judged because of fitting the mold. They're just authentically being themselves. It really opens doors for them to really be able to thrive in connection. And when you get a likable connector to be authentic, especially when you get a likable connector to be authentic in connection, all of a sudden they let their guards down. They feel safe, and they start really adding value to their life because because the likable connector needs that authenticity to really be able to thrive. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time today to work on your connections. Thank you so much for really learning to benefit from healthy, vibrant connections. If you want to learn more about connections, find us on Facebook. We usually do a weekly webinar. Subscribe here on YouTube. We love that. Please leave comments. I read those comments. And just remember, when we connect, life gets better. See ya!